Jungkook felt sick. He stared down at the marble floor, trying to ignore his rising temperature, and the fact the room appeared to be spinning. He could have wrote that off as a side effect of the alcohol, but it was more than that. Jungkook had gotten in bad states from over-drinking before, but this wasn't like that. It felt different, and there was no brushing over why that was. "I'm sorry," Taehyung kept speaking, and Jungkook snapped back into the room, the sound of his friend's voice directing him back into the dark reality. Jungkook kept his eyes pinned on the ground, unable to look up due to the crushing fear that if he saw Taehyung looking at him like that, then he'd not be able to hold in his tears. Jungkook Lightfoot didn't cry, and certainly not over boys. "Jungkook, look at me. Talk to me. Anything. Just please. I'm so sorry, Jungkook. Please, why didn't you tell me sooner?" Jungkook suddenly choked. It was one of the many questions buzzing around his head at that moment, but possibly not the most important. And why now? The timing was the worst, but that wasn't the biggest issue. Jungkook was simply avoiding thinking, or at least talking, about the real problem he had with Taehyung's confession. "I couldn't lie to you anymore, Jungkook," Taehyung explained, his voice shaking. He was aware that every sentence he spoke was going to change everything, but he didn't want to ruin everything. He feared, rightfully so, that it was too late. Maybe it was already ruined. Jungkook wasn't giving him much of an indication either way, just staring blank-faced at the ground as if he was having an intense stare-off with someone. Only, there were the only two people in the room, and Jungkook wasn't one for eye contact anyway, but Taehyung wanted nothing more than for Jungkook to just look at him. He really needed that reassurance. But there was never a good time, and then tonight just made it easier. Plus, I was kind of running out of time anyway. Figure it. So I told you. That's bullshit. Jungkook said it quietly at first, but then it suddenly hit him. This was happening, and Taehyung wasn't joking. He meant every word he said, and there was nothing that Jungkook could do to change his mind. Jungkook stood up, the sickness inside of his stomach worsening with the sudden movements, and the room shaking even more violently than before. He was boiling, but mostly with rage. How could Taehyung do this to him? "Bullshit," he yelled, kicking the corner of the couch with all the force in his body, which did more damage to the sole of his feet than the sturdy couch. He wanted to cry, but Jungkook Lightfoot didn't do that. Not ever. "I'm sorry," Taehyung repeated, but the words didn't really matter, not to Jungkook. Sorry wasn't going to change anything. "When do you leave?" Jungkook asked. His voice cracked as he spoke, and he turned back around, facing Taehyung for the first time. Taehyung stared at him. Jungkook looked like a different person. A damaged person. His eyes glassy with tears that he simply refused to let fall, and his hair was messed from all the times his fingers that had run through it during the course of the conversation, and his lips were dry and cracked, his nostrils frozen in the flared position on his face, giving him a confused, hurt expression that made Taehyung feel all the more guilty about his decision. But not guilty enough to change it. Jungkook just looked kind of messed up. Jungkook was definitely a kind of messed up, but he was his own, crazy version of it. Not even Taehyung knew what was going through the guy's head, and he knew Jungkook better than anyone did. 5 days, Taehyung told him, closing his eyes so that he didn't have to see the crumpled, agonizing expression across Jungkook's usually bright, beautiful face. "It's too late for me to back out now, even if I wanted to, Jungkook." "And you want to?" Jungkook quizzed, swallowing back the lump in his throat. He ran his hands through his hair once again, pivoting and then turning back around to sit on the couch again. He didn't know what to do with his limbs. His entire body felt wrong and out of place, but he settled with sitting on the couch normally, his arms folded across his chest and his legs stapled firmly to the ground so that he didn't have to keep awkwardly moving them around. Tae-hyung continued staring at him whilst he contemplated the answer to Jungkook's god-awful question, knowing that Jungkook needed the answer. "I guess I want to stay," Tae-hyung replied eventually. "I wouldn't ever want to leave you on purpose like that, but I have to, Jungkook. Don't you get that?" No, he really didn't. Jungkook couldn't see the point. Tae-hyung was too invested in his future. He had all these career goals and aspirations, but Jungkook never understood why. He didn't aspire for anything but a happy future surrounded by people that he adored, Tae-hyung being the top of that list. He despised that Tae-hyung was leaving. How could he not? But more than that, he despised that Tae-hyung wasn't satisfied by the idea of a simple future with him and the rest of their friends. Why did he have to leave them? Did Tae-hyung really believe it would be worth losing them? Or even risking that? That was the one thing that had always divided Tae-hyung and Jungkook. They had different priorities, different ideas of joy. Jungkook was made happy by people, some more than others, whereas Tae-hyung was made happy by a mixture of all things, be that people or money or stability or luxuries. Jungkook never understood that Tae-hyung couldn't have all of that in Brooklyn, but he couldn't. Tae-hyung knew exactly what he wanted, and evidently, he didn't care whether his friends supported that or not. He intended to go after it. "So why are you leaving?" Jungkook whispered with a strong, icy tone. Tae-hyung stared at him. "If you really wanted to stay, then you would. But you're leaving. You're abandoning me. You think that's what I'm doing?" Tae-hyung scoffed. Jungkook nodded, but he didn't dare look at Tae-hyung. "You selfish." What? Jungkook blurted, surprised at the sudden insult, and in all honesty hurt by it. He hated getting insulted, and so it stung even more when the insult came from someone that he cared so much about. "I can't believe that you think this is about you," Tae-hyung hissed, standing up and staring down at Tae-hyung, for once forcing Jungkook to be the one looking up to him. "I'm doing this for me, Jungkook. I'm doing it because I need to do this, to help me, to make me happy. Don't you see that? I don't want to leave you all behind, but that can't be helped. It isn't my fault the course is in Detroit, alright? It's not about you. For once nothing in your life is ever about me." Tae-hyung, Jungkook cut in, their anger levels matching. He stood up, asserting his physical dominance over Tae-hyung, though his only real advantage was height, and stared down at Tae-hyung, who returned an equally cold glare. "You don't give about me. You didn't think to tell me you were leaving until now. That tells me all I need to know about how you feel about me," and it stung. It hurt like a little, but Jungkook refused to show it. "No tears? No tears?" Tae-hyung had never seen him cry. That wasn't going to change at this point. "I was trying to save your feelings," Tae-hyung protested. "I knew you'd be upset, and I was right. You're acting like we'll never see each other again. You're making me feel guilty about pursuing what I love. Do you know what that says about you, Jungkook? You're acting like a complete asshole and I don't get why. It's not the end of the world, Jungkook. You know how to function without me. You don't need me to live, alright? Why is this such a big deal for you? I thought you'd be happy for me." The shouting stopped after that. Jungkook couldn't bring himself to respond straight away, and the room was left silent with the two of them having a quickly softening stare out. until Jungkook eventually took a step back and stared down at the ground. He noted that the room had stopped spinning, and he no longer felt ill, but he was still hot, sweating in fact, and his thoughts were also jumbled up among his feelings. After a few long seconds of painful silence, Jungkook spoke again. "It's not that I don't want to be happy for you," he explained, his voice shaking as he tried to string the sentence together. It was proving difficult, not knowing which words to use and what he really meant or what he was trying to say, but he went along with what felt right. "I just don't know how to be happy for you when I'm sad for me." "Why the hell are you sad for you?" Tae-hyung questioned, almost laughing at the absurd statement. He was clueless, and it wasn't until that moment that Jungkook realized how little Tae-hyung knew.